Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Know. This is a series that digs into the details on a variety of topics. My name is Jenn Killpack, and I serve the church as Director of Communications. My guest today is Katie Harmon-McLaughlin. She's the Director of Formation Ministries, and she's here to talk with us today about Reunion 2023 materials and how those can be used at your events. Becca Loving and Brittany Mangelson are on tech support today, so if you have questions for us, please drop those in the chat, and we'll answer those toward the end of our discussion today. Katie, it's so good to have you here today. Thank you.
Good to be here.
We were in a meeting this morning together, and we both acknowledged that we are highly caffeinated today, so I hope you are ready. So let's start with maybe an overview of materials that are available for camps and reunions this summer.
Yes, thanks, Jen. And I know that Jen will be pulling up some things on her screen to share with us as we move along. So the theme for this year's reunion is God, where is your spirit leading next? And we deliberately decided to focus on discernment because we knew that there are so many issues that are currently before the church, including many of the important things that have just come out of the World Conference experience. So the reunion materials are really designed to be a framework for communities to engage in practices and processes of discernment about whatever topics are of importance to them contextually. And in just a few minutes, we'll share a little bit more about a supplemental guide as well. But first, we want to touch on just a few of the resources that are available to you as part of the reunion packet this year. So first, the worship and sharing services, and I think Jen will pull those up for us, are available on heraldhouse.org. And the worship and sharing services were designed together, and they live together in one resource because they were created to be integrated with each other in the entire reunion experience. So as always, you're invited to utilize these resources and adapt them so that they are meaningful to your own experience and context. But everything that you want to find that has to do with reunion, worships, and sharing services can be found in this resource. So then the next one is the Children's Activity Guide, Teach Me God to Wonder, that has some really wonderful, creative lessons and activities for children that also focus on discernment. And a core scripture for the entire reunion experience is the parable of the sower. So you'll see that the children's materials also follow the steps of the discernment process that we'll be using throughout that experience and connect with the parable of the sower as well. The next resource is a youth discernment journal. And
I'm going to have you hold that one up because I don't have a PDF of that up. Sorry.
So Jen has up the Youth Facilitator Guide, which is for those who are teaching the youth class at reunion. It provides invitations for how to utilize the Youth Discernment Journal for each day of the reunion experience. The Youth Discernment Journal looks like this. And on the front cover, it says, God, where is your spirit leading next? It is beautifully designed by artist Allie Arnold. And I'll just show you an example of a page. It's really pretty. There's lots of space for youth to consider different questions and write their responses. And this was designed to be a resource that has a life that is longer than just reunion. So the Youth Facilitator Guide is available for youth teachers to be able to use this resource within the reunion experience. But we also encourage you to see this Youth Discernment Journal as a resource that has a much longer life and can be utilized in lots of different ways and can even be utilized again and again. So you might print off copies of the PDF or order copies of this very nicely created resource from heraldhouse.com. And it can be a wonderful gift for youth as they're asking the big questions of life that face them. The next resource is the Adult Study Text. And this resource pulls in some of the invitations by President Veazey that we have heard over the last couple of years from the Way Forward and other addresses, and frames the entire experience through a discernment process. So each day is focused on a different discernment process and practice. And as a community, we're invited to use that framework again to explore a question or a topic that is of importance to you contextually. And so in just a minute, when we talk about the supplemental resource, I'll talk more about what that exactly looks like if you are a facilitator of these experiences.
Perfect. As Katie mentioned, all of these resources are available at heraldhouse.org. And if you come to the homepage of Herald House, you will see right here a very simple, easy, clickable link where you can get to all of the materials that she just mentioned. Another way that you can get there is through Church Life. And under Camps and Retreats, the first option here is the 2023 God, Where is Your Spirit Leading Next materials. So both of those links will get you to the materials. Also another one here. So we're trying to hit all of our bases for wherever you might land on the page. We want to try to get you to these resources as quickly as possible. So back to the front here. So if you click on that or any one of those, you'll get the options here that Katie mentioned. So you can see the discernment journal, the printed version, and a PDF version if you'd like to print your own. There are also, for the adult text, the option for print and PDF, and then worship, the youth facilitator guide, and the Teach Me God to Wonder children's guide are all PDF downloads. Again, when you click on any of these, you can add to your cart, and then it will give you the download. I will draw your attention down here to this donation option because resources, even though we offer them for free, there is a cost to producing them, both with people's time and also art time, design time, etc. So if you decide to use these resources and are able to, we'd greatly appreciate a slight or a small donation. I'm going to pop over to, let's pop back over to the adult text. So in both the PDF option and in the print option, if you click on those, here's where you can get a couple of free extras. And I'll have Katie talk about the facilitator's steps.
Yeah, so after World Conference, we created a supplemental resource to accompany this adult text that really gives options for, as a facilitator of the class, what is it that you want to be discerning together? Since the framework of the class is really a discernment journey, it's kind of a choose your own adventure kind of experience. You can choose the topic that you really want to focus on. The teaching of the material is going to be teaching the community how to be a discerning community, but we can address whatever question or topic is of importance to your context. And so this guide gives options of questions to consider and things that you might think about as you're choosing the question. The first option is discerning future leadership. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end as well. We are currently in a discernment process as a worldwide community to discern who will be the next prophet president for Community of Christ, and what does the future of Community of Christ look like. And so you can see that throughout the summer, we have the questions listed. For June, what are the most significant situations, challenges, or opportunities that a prophetic leader will need to address? And for July, August, we're in that pray, share rhythm with what is God's call for the worldwide church in this time. So those are great questions to bring before your reunion experience. And you'll notice in the supplemental guide, it invites you, if you choose to use one of those questions as the discernment question for the class, to be really intentional about taking notes or asking someone to take notes so that you can send feedback from those questions to the First Presidency as part of that ongoing process. Another possibility is to discern a local issue that is of importance in your own community or mission center. There are two questions that were asked at World Conference that would also serve as really meaningful discernment questions. One comes from President Veazey's closing message: how are we courageously walking with Jesus, the peaceful one? And the other comes from Ron Harmon's conference sermon that the presiding bishopric is inviting us to consider. How are we joining the movement of God's generous compassion? There's also the opportunity to discern what next steps might be taken in your area in response to resolutions that were passed at World Conference. And so you'll see in the supplemental resource that there is a link to all of the actions that were voted on by the conference and a few sample questions for you to consider if you're thinking about asking a question about racial justice, the climate emergency, compassion for refugees, marriage and Christ-like relationships, or you're welcome to look through that list of official actions and determine your own question based on the topics that are important in your context.
Thanks, Katie. I think this is a really good way to kind of continue to think about what happened at conference and have that live in the life of our gatherings and churches and events this summer. So thank you so much for putting that together. We also have, for those of you who are reunion planners, this is back on Herald House now. So again, with the adult study text, if you are a facilitator, you can download the companion PowerPoint template. So that is linked there, and here's what it looks like. It gives you a couple of different slide options. There's one where you can use for a title slide, a subtitle slide, content slides, etc. For those of you who are familiar with PowerPoint, you can see the slide designs here. You've got a multitude of choices. So go out and create good PowerPoints this summer. Those can be used for classes. Also, if you like to use PowerPoint slides or decks in worship settings, this would be another option to do that as well. This PowerPoint template is also available in our ministry tools under the PowerPoint templates section in the graphics tab. So that's kind of where all of our templates go to live permanently after a particular season. Katie, I did want to just take a minute and talk a little bit about these resources. Typically we produce them for reunions, but really they have a life that is much greater than just a reunion. So what are maybe some other options or ways that people could use these resources post reunion season?
That's a great question. Particularly the adult lessons, because they're really framed very open. That is a process that you could use anytime you are in a community that is facing a topic that they want to spend time in discernment with. And so they have a much longer life because discernment is something that we're invited to return to again and again and again. And the same with the children's and youth lessons. You know, as I mentioned, this discernment resource for youth has been created as something that can be a guide in the reunion experience, but also intentionally designed to live much longer. And in fact, there is more in that journal than you will ever be able to get to in 1 week. And so we really do encourage you to think about all of the other ways that you can bring these resources into the communities that you are a part of beyond the reunion experience. And I just want to say a word about discernment, because I know sometimes we use words a lot in the church, and people get tired of hearing certain words that we use and say, why are we still talking about discernment? What I really want to emphasize is how important discernment is at this moment in our call to become continually a prophetic people. That discernment is really where prayer and action meet. And it is the way that we listen for where the Spirit of God is leading us next. And we are in such a ripe moment of possibility and change in Community of Christ that as we are called to truly live into that identity of being a prophetic people, discernment is a rich, reliable practice from Community of Christ and broader Christian tradition that can help us live into that future with faithfulness and hope. And so I really encourage you, as you're spending time with these resources, to think creatively about the broader application and how they can be used to address all kinds of questions that are coming before your community at this time.
That's great. I know you talked a little bit about the discernment process earlier as one of the options that people could utilize with these resources during their summer events. But this process of discerning future leadership actually goes beyond the summer. We're just kind of in one particular phase of that now. I'm going to pull up the website again real quick. So on seaofchrist.org, get there. You can find the discernment process here under Connect and Discerning Future Leadership. That is where it lives and will live for the foreseeable future. And down here in the discernment process, this is where each month Katie referenced the pray and reflect or pray and share kind of couplets that we're engaged in. And so this is where you can find a link to what the current question is, and then each month, depending on which month we are in of that couplet. So right now it's May, so you could submit a prayer here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it. It opens up a really brief form. This is available in English, French, and Spanish, so you can switch the language if you'd like, and submit your prayer based on this question. Katie, is there anything else that you would encourage the church or those watching to engage in this particular process?
Yes. First of all, I think having those reminders is really important for us. We're in this pray share rhythm because we really want to invite people individually and in community to spend time reflectively with these questions. And so you're invited to engage this personally, but we also invite you to think creatively about how you might bring these questions into your community. Maybe they're questions that you ask in worship, in small groups, in adult or children's classes. We want broad response from the church. And so in the pray months, you can submit those prayers that you are sensing. In the share months, we really want to hear those responses to those questions. And I know the presidency is monitoring those responses and is excited to receive the feedback of the church, and will take it in whatever form you're willing to share it. And so you might even think creatively about how can we get the perspectives of our children and youth for these questions. And on the website, there are alternative questions that are aimed toward children and youth to help them participate in the process. So, if it's a young child, maybe ask, hey, when you hear this question, draw a picture in response and send that in. The presidency wants to receive all of the feedback from all ages of people and from everywhere throughout the world as we are considering these questions together. So the process has been left pretty open so that you can engage it in the ways that are most meaningful for you personally and contextually. But we also invite you to be creative as you think about how to spread the invitation far and wide and to actually go in and submit your responses. We really want to hear from every person.
Yes. I'm going to turn now to the chat to see if we have any questions. It looks like we don't. A couple of comments. Just looking. Okay. So I think we are question free today. We've really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you so much, Katie, again, for being with us today. If any of you who are listening today or watching today have a question that comes up a little bit later, feel free to email communications or directly to Katie to answer some of those questions about the resources. We're happy to help whenever we can. So again, reminder, these resources are available at heraldhouse.org. Click on the big banner on the homepage. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day and many blessings on your events as you gather. May they be full of sacred connections. And In the Know will be back probably sometime this summer. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Katie, so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.